Guys, let's talk about game dev again. First of all, I want to say thank you for the crazy reception of the Unreal Engine video I did the other week. I thought that video was going to get like 50,000 views and it just crossed 1 million, which is nuts. I thought YouTube was going to punish me for going a little bit outside of my niche like it normally does.
Well, what if I just did it?
You don't want to do that.
But yeah, the friggin' thing killed it. And speaking of killing it, I attached an email on that video that was saying, hey, if you wouldn't hate working with me and you're a game programmer or a 3D modeler, or maybe just even inexperienced, send me an email here. That was a great idea and I've loved reading your guys' emails. There's only one problem with that, which is I thought I was gonna get like 200 emails and I just checked my inbox and we've crossed 1,700. Which is overwhelming as hell, and I'm trying to like get to as many as I can. But one thing that I thought was really awesome about the emails that you guys sent me was seeing the overwhelming amount of passion that you guys have for making a game in the future. A lot of you were talking about like how you've been dreaming about doing it forever, and I hope that videos like this inspire you to take a stab at it. I'm a friggin' moron, dude. I was a D and an F student, I didn't go to college, and slowly but surely, I'm understanding it. The recordings that I did for this video took about like 3 weeks, and it's crazy to look back at the footage already, just like less than a month ago, and see how much I've learned. Like I'm correcting my former self like, dude, the thing isn't moving because you're multiplying by delta, of course. It's wild, it's accessible, and you can do it too. Now, some of you guys emailed me talking about, hey, I know a good way to get you not distracted on YouTube is using an app extension called Unhooked, and that is a godsend, dude. If you are like trying to learn something and you need to use YouTube as a resource, all it does is visually remove all the recommendations on your YouTube profile, and you can turn it on and off whenever you want. And it's just helped me be able to stay on task so much, but every now and then I forget to turn it on and then I'll just get distracted by more Thor from Pirate Software videos. And I know that sounds like I'm sponsored by Unhooked, but I promise I'm not. I'm sponsored by War Thunder. War Thunder is a game that's way better than any video game I'm gonna make for a while. Thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. You guys have probably heard War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, and it's available to play for free today on PC and on consoles. There's over 2,500 different tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships of 10 major nations, ranging from biplanes and armored cars of the 1920s all the way to the fighter jets and main battle tanks of today. There's so many incredibly detailed vehicles to unlock, and they got great graphics. Again, just absolutely crushing anything I can make. The graphics and the sound design will make you realize how much freaking firepower is in these vehicles. And there's so many to unlock and so many different game modes to try out. And you can join the community of over 70 million players in PvP battles. The game doesn't use simple square hitboxes and hurt boxes like my game made in Godot does. You can blast apart like individual pieces of your vehicle, just things setting on fire and smoking as you gun down your enemies to your last breath. If you're a fan of military history, you gotta give War Thunder a try. And again, you can play for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox now using my link in the pinned comment or the video description. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across all platforms that include multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator, the Eagle of Valor, 100,000 silver lions, and 7 days of a premium account. It's available for a limited time only, so you gotta be quick. Thank you again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video and supporting my channel. Now back to a much less impressive game that I made. Okay, so this time around I'm making a game in Godot engine, which you might be like, what, is Unreal Engine old news? No, it's very much new news. I mean, 5.4 just came out and it's getting crazy upgraded. But I noticed that with my Unreal Engine experience as just a complete noob to game dev, in Unreal it feels like you're on a mission to make this giant, big, complex, intricate game with a bunch of different functions. And in Godot, it just feels more aimed at making a lightweight, fun, simpler game. And I kind of just want to like learn to make games. I want to make complete games that have a concept and an idea and it's executed and it's playable, and like you guys can even try it on like an itch.io or something for free. And I've just heard so much buzz about Godot. It's super lightweight, like it's just a couple megabytes. Even when you get the program, it's not like you install it. It's literally just like an exe that you unzip. Godot's an open source engine, so it's constantly being updated by its growing audience. And if you make money with the engine, you get all of it. Even if you sold like 1 million copies, they don't take a cut. It's yours. I love the organization of nodes. I like that if you add a sprite, it smiles at you. Like, that's so nice. Everything is all in its program. It's got great icons, great user interface. The scripting is done inside the program. It uses a thing called GD script, which is apparently a lot like Python, if you know that. I don't. And it just seems like super welcoming and like friendly. I even noticed right away when I started doing my crappy little code, the engine would just tell me at the bottom, like, dude, you need a colon to, like, for that to even work. And I was like, oh, okay, great. I'll just put that in there and then it works. And there's even been like game development celebrities coming back for Godot. I'm talking about you, Brackies. Literally, Brackies used to teach like everything Unity back in the day. I wasn't like a game developer in Unity, but I tried it out once or twice, and the person that I went to learn Unity was Brackies. He's just this awesome, optimistic Scandinavian man who's teaching the internet video game design. And one day when the world needed him most, he just vanished. But now he's returned as a 12-year-old named Aang. Nah, I'm just kidding, it's still him. But now he's teaching Godot instead of Unity. I will say my other YouTube friend, Talentless Writer, pointed me in the direction of the GD Quest Vampire Survivors game development tutorial, and that channel is awesome. It is so like premium and good at teaching you stuff. The animations in the videos are so free. How are they this smooth? So I looked up a bunch of games that were made in Godot, its most successful titles and such. The king spot is weirdly a game called Brotato. Brotato from the outside looks like a $5 mini clip game. Actually on the inside he looks like that too, but I thought it was gonna be a little stupid game, which in a way it is, except that stupid game that I started playing, I played for 7 hours that day. It is awesome. It's made by one French dude. If you've ever played Vampire Survivors, it's very similar to that. That and like something like Hades, it's a roguelike. You get like 6 guns and you just start annihilating a bunch of aliens. Potato versus aliens, you know the drill. It's a great silly game. Wait, hold up, this game made $5 million? All right, let's get started. So Brackies releases his first tutorial on making a game in Godot. He's got a super simple platformer game that I honestly wasn't interested in making. I'll be honest, at first I wanted to make a 3D game in Godot. I later make a 2D game. So I found a video series by the channel Born CG about getting started in a 3D project in Godot, where it's just a simple little platform thing, and I'm like, okay, this is where I'll learn the basics of the Godot engine. And I completed all 9 videos of the tutorial before realizing this tutorial isn't finished yet. So I didn't even get to like complete a game, it just ends. So I was like, well, but I was like, maybe I've learned enough to see if I can go to another tutorial that's making a 2D game, like GD Quest Vampire Survivors tutorial, but make it in 3D. And here's where my ignorance shows like to the max. This is something I could not do at this point. I don't even know if I could do it at this point. If you don't know what a Vampire Survivors kind of game is, it's a roguelike where you play as a person that shoots automatically while you run from increasingly difficult swarms of enemies to see how far you can get and how powerful you can become before you die. So if I was gonna make a Survivors game, I wanted to have my own original spin on it. So the idea I came up with was being a stranded man on a life raft. All the enemies would be like water themed, you know, sharks, piranhas, evil seagulls, pirates, kraken tentacles, etc. I wanted to keep most of the enemies like real things, but then as the game gets progressively harder, I would increase the magical zaniness of the game. Kind of like a Sea of Thieves. Also, an important thing about this game dev journey is just keeping things simple. And I know that everybody says do that, so I'm like, all right, I'm keeping this simple. At this point, I still wanted to make it in 3D, but I know that water would just be a flat blue plane. I knew that the life raft was just gonna be a yellow hexagon, and I wanted to keep the art style just a really simple, low poly art style. One, for functionality, because I'm a novice in Blender and that's pretty much all I can make right now, but in a lot of cases I also love the low poly art look. Like on Dredge, a game I absolutely love and put an incredible amount of effort into making a video on it, which nobody watched. My game would be about upgrading that raft to make it like a moving arsenal. So you would kill enemies around your boat that would drop currency. Let's make it a sand dollar because that's kind of cute. And then at the end of the day, you pull out your fishing rod and send your fishing line down to the bottom of the ocean, where you can pick up items from the sea floor, whether it's from like a shipwreck or a treasure chest, kind of working as a store where you spend your sand dollars to get new equipment. I also absolutely love the game Risk of Rain 2, where as you pick up items, they actually show up on your guy. I would love it if like all the items that you got showed up on your raft. And I would love to also get ridiculous with it too, where you can like pull up a giant sail and like put the sail in the middle of your life raft, and that increases like your movement speed. I think you get the idea. So then I remember there's actually a website that gives free assets away called kenny.com. So instead of a raft, I got a full pirate ship. Probably was my first mistake, if I'm being honest. Like I put it in the Godot engine and its anchor point was off, and immediately that just like shut my brain down on what to do. How about we just... Oh, I suck. My first week in Godot was really just trying to make something 3D work, and eventually I just came to the compromise of making my game in 2D. So this next part of the video, I really consider my first day trying to make a video game. And then I can like gather a coin. So up until this point, I was just dicking around a lot. But through this dicking around, I did at least start getting used to navigating the Godot engine. And there were some basic concepts that I was starting to grasp. And right here is when I started just going for it and completing the GD Quest Vampire Survivors tutorial. But this time using my own art that I created. So when it comes to art, I'm aware that I have the leg up when it comes to drawing. And I'm not trying to be some conceited art douche, which I am, but I've been drawing since I was 5 years old. And I know that this part can intimidate a lot of people. By the way, I'm saying this because I get vexed every time I see a game dev journey start with somebody saying, I have never made a video game before in my life, and here's my experience. By the way, I have been programming for 27 years, and within like a week, they have an amazing functioning game. It's like, well, yeah, dude, you speak computer. Now, I love drawing, and I truly think anybody can do it. And even the art that I made for this whole Godot video, I'm using a few critical tricks to get good looking results fast. And I want to show you guys how to do that. So if you have a tablet, just realize this is kind of a stupid thing to lead with because not a lot of people have tablets, but that's okay because believe it or not, you can actually use your mouse. I used to draw with my mouse all the time and made things like this, which I know showing this is kind of making me a conceited art douche, but still, all you have to do is learn how to use the pen tool, which you've probably seen before and not understood how to use. Once you get the hang of it, you can make some pretty amazing stuff. There's an app called Procreate that is just amazing. It's only $10, it's a one-time payment, and there's just like such powerful tools in it. You will not regret purchasing it. You could also use something like Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop and GIMP if it's free. There's a bunch of free art tools out there if you just give it a quick Google. Here's my 4 tips to getting started drawing. Number 1, use reference. Before you get started, if you have an idea, Google what that thing looks like before you start drawing it, because if you don't, you're gonna miss a bunch of stuff and probably not get the results you want. Number 2, this is specific for a game engine if you want to animate your character, use layers. You can separate every appendage, so draw your body on one layer, draw your head on one layer, draw your arms on one layer, draw your legs on one layer. And on the first layer, you can make that your sketch layer where you take like a pencil tool and just kind of give it a rough sketch, or even make a sketch on your paper and take a picture of it with your phone and upload it onto your computer. I leave that as layer 1, and then I use a smooth ink brush to draw over my sketch, which leads me to my 3rd trick. Now this is pretty Procreate specific, but there's a lot of applications that also use this. There are these smooth brushes, I think it's called the syrup brush in Procreate, that as you draw, it'll smooth your line out for you. And in Procreate, you can also draw a line that has like some jiggle in it, but if you hold at the end of it, it'll straighten out the curve. And my 4th tip is to use a symmetry function. Again, this is kind of specific to Procreate, but a lot of apps have a way of just duplicating something and flipping it and having it on the other side. And your art will look much more digestible than if you were just to freehand all of it. And I don't recommend using a symmetry tool for your future art endeavors every project you do. It's not gonna make you a better artist in the future. But right now, you can keep things really simple just using primitive shapes like ovals and circles and triangles. I hope this helps. If you wanna know more, there are amazing art channels on YouTube teaching how to draw, teaching how to illustrate, how to paint, that do a phenomenal job that are way better than me. And even if you don't make your own art, dude, you could download clip art and make a stupid meme game. You don't have to draw everything yourself. I just really like drawing, and I hope you enjoyed my little beach Einstein. My idea for this game was a medieval Bannerlord era vampire survivor style game with aspects from Brotato. So in Brotato, you can carry 6 guns, right? But you remain that one potato. My idea was, what if instead of getting guns, you get more men that travel with you that all have their own weapons equipped? And for the art style, I was trying to make art that was inspired by those like weirdly eerie medieval cartoon paintings. And I personally really like how it turned out, even though my brother took a look at it and was like, are you playing as Mary Magdalene? No, that's not a cloth hat. It's freaking chainmail. So basically you would run around like a pack of anchovies in SpongeBob, and your little band of brothers would go around a field and attack other packs of enemies that get bigger and more difficult the further you go on. I got my character into the game and I started animating him with his little journey-like legs that were just bouncing up and down. So while I was trying to make my own game, I ran into a couple problems. What is this? What is this? Number 1 being, I don't know what some symbols meant. And I had to Google a bunch of stuff that wasn't giving me any results. Like, what the hell is this % sign next to the animation player? Well, turns out it's the exact reason why my whole game wasn't working properly. As an outsider, I've hated this stuff in code where I'm like, why is there a $ in the middle of your code? Is this like a coding slang term just trying to sound cool? No, it just means that this node, if you right click it, you can set a unique name on top of it, which basically means that whatever part of the tree it's in, whatever parent that it's a child of, you'll be able to use it in code and not have to give its whole path. But I didn't figure this out. So I had to restart my game again, this time using their project files, and then finding out that that was the difference. I think I figured out what was causing all the issues yesterday, but it sucks because like I basically deleted that last project on accident, or not on accident, intentionally, but now I'm regretting it. And then that's how I got my animation player working, and that's how I figured out the freaking percentage sign thing along with the cache sign. And the cache sign is just a shortcut for saying get node. Oh, and of course, once I restart my entire project and restart the tutorial and get to where I'm at again, I realized that like 10 minutes later, he addresses the whole unique name thing. I should have just waited. So I think day 3 is a good time to talk about coding. A big thing that I recommend and that helped me a lot was using the comments feature, which in GD script, you just put a hashtag before you say something and it'll just gray it out. It doesn't affect your code at all. It's just a note to yourself and to anybody else that wants to work on your game with you for their future reference and your future reference when you inevitably forget how you did something. So my scripts are just covered in notes because I'm learning everything and trying to figure it out. And I highly recommend doing that because you can follow along in a tutorial and maybe you pick it up better than I do, but I found that writing a comment next to the stuff explaining that back to myself was so helpful to like drill it into my head of how this thing functions. As a noob, it seems like the important things are variables and functions. So variables define something, and then you have functions or func that will do something. The part that does get confusing that I'm still learning is that functions can be put inside of functions and variables can be defined inside of functions. They're not always put at the top. So as somebody that doesn't code, there's a lot that I do understand, but then there's just like those little curveballs that really make me start scratching my head. But usually with enough reading or just re-listening to the clip that's explaining what something does, I'm able to, in some ways, pick it up. But some code does come off as complicated and like slightly redundant, like the variable direction.global position thing. Like what?
So we can type player.global position, and we will type global position direction from this one.
This is so confusing. Variable direction equals global position dot direction to parentheses player dot global position. We're setting a variable. It's funny to see this now. The problem is that I don't understand the direction underscore to function, but the real problem is that I don't even know that's the problem. 99 problems and a func is another problem. Global position. I don't know what the fuck that means. The way I've described some parts of learning code is like looking at that optical illusion of an elephant and its legs, where you can't figure out where one leg ends and one begins. It's like, where does this start and how is it doing this? Fortunately, while I was going through some mental roadblocks, Bracky's released another video that's not a tutorial. It's just an overview of programming in Godot, which was like perfect timing for me. And it was so helpful. By the way, another amazing animation, so smooth. What is up with all these indie game dev people just having the best animations in YouTube? Eventually, I attached a bow to my character and started actually shooting. The only problem was that the bow shot a sideways arrow. And I could not figure this out for a while until I changed one direction of code and it just somehow worked. If I did up. You're kidding me, that actually works. I mean, it feels like a band-aid solution, but while trying to learn coding, when you can do this, when you like just are like, maybe this will work, and it actually does, and you can pair it with a visually successful version of what you just changed, it is so satisfying. I will say a lot of this journey is not happiness and satisfaction. There's a lot of frustration that comes with game development. Why does one even... And you'll be humbled by sometimes thinking you start understanding the code. A perfect example of this was getting my death animation to work.
Okay, great.
Wow, so if I do this. Why would that work, you know? Is it even gonna play the animation or is this gonna delete him? Yeah. Of course. Does that work? Fuck you. And this part is where I feel like I was really learning, was just experimenting, trying things like, okay, if the enemy's health gets to 0, play the death animation, and then the velocity should equal 0 right here. That should work, right? Wrong, apparently. As much as I was tinkering around, there was just a lot that I didn't understand about Godot yet. Like a big thing that I didn't understand until much later than I feel like I should have. Every time you see these blue texts, that is a built-in function that Godot has pre-made to use. And it's correlated with that node. Like that blue text isn't gonna show up for some other nodes. So throughout my progress of the first version of my medieval Vampire Survivors game, I realized that with my first attempt, I'm probably not gonna get what I want. Like my pack of soldiers with a bunch bunch of different weapons, but I started to feel good about where I was getting with just all of this coding that I was doing that I had never done before. To get something that actually looks like a video game where enemies are coming towards me and I'm shooting them and killing them, and I have a health bar that drains, and I have a bunch of enemies that can spawn, just so many enemies. I mean, like, I got a game over screen. Like, it felt so good to get to a game over screen point in a tutorial. I had made something. I had made a video game. As small and kind of shitty as it is, it felt good. And I felt like I had learned a lot, so I was like, all right, now let's try to make another Survivors game, but this time just way better. And with that gave me an excuse to draw a lot more art for the next game. I will say, if we're gonna call out mistakes that I made, like I did in my Unreal video, I would say one of them for me is over animating this time around and over drawing. I drew way too many assets that I didn't use for this game, so far at least. But I know the reason why I'm doing it. It's because it feels like I'm succeeding in something, whereas I feel like I'm failing a lot in the code. Coding is a lot slower moving, art is pretty much immediate, and I feel gratification from it. And I know that a lot of people are gonna be like, you're animating too much, you're drawing too much, you're focusing on the looks too much, you gotta focus on the function. But the thing is, I get a ton of satisfaction from making this art and making it work in a game that keeps my mental ball rolling to keep on making a game that involves the hard part, which is coding for me. And then of course I just started animating it like crazy for so long. Like I said earlier, Risk of Rain is one of my favorite games ever made. And in that game, every item that you pick up gets attached to your player. And in Risk of Rain, it's kind of random. It's just like mushrooms growing off of your shoulder. And in mine, I was just thinking, what if you went as like a peasant to a great warrior, traveler, adventurer guy, where you get like a ton of belts and armor plating and quivers and chainmail and little like health potions and little trinkets that you get, and then all of it to jingle on you as you're moving around, like not to stay stagnant. I love physics so much. This isn't physics, this is actually just like custom animations. I will say I also thought about a cooler idea once I started learning about rigid body physics, which is adding an object that is affected by physics, whether that's gravity or collisions, all that kind of stuff. And some of you might know what I'm talking about, which is, do you remember that game Madness? It's on like addictinggames.com. I remember playing it in like 2nd grade at like my aunt's house on her computer, just hiding, making sure nobody saw me see like any sort of these blood effects, which were kind of pretty graphic if you think about it. You could just blow people's heads off in that game. But I loved the physics of that game. Like being able to throw a knife, as you're swinging your hand, you could let go of the key like you were throwing a dart with physics. And you could stab into enemies and like kill them, and their body would like, you know, be a lifeless little ragdoll. And I was like, man, what if there was like an Enter the Gungeon, Nuclear Throne kind of game like that, but everything that you killed had physics on it? Like what if you were like throwing hatchets and daggers and knives, just like Enter the Gungeon, but everything has physics on it? Just an idea. Again, don't steal this. I mean, you can, I don't care. This is when I started watching Brano's tutorial series on making Vampire Survivors pretty much from the ground up to the finish line, and I can't recommend this tutorial series more. I love the way this guy teaches. He shows you how to practically code your game, and at the end of every chapter of the tutorial, he does a theory time and explains why he did the things that he did and how it's working. So it's basically getting something to work and then looking at it and recounting every single part that makes it work. I started being able to spawn axes because I wanted my main weapon to be a throwing axe that would spin. Eventually I was able to make a bunch of zombie characters, and there's something about being able to spawn in like an infinite amount of enemies that just feels so powerful. Like, look at all the madness I've created. And then I figured out how to make throwing spinning axes and how to animate whole nodes entirely. At first I thought animating in Godot was only gonna animate the artwork and like the collision box would remain static. And it's like, no, you can make the animation player animate the entire node where the collision shape will move with the animation. I also made some grass, and I got that grass to appear in front of my foot and behind my foot after I ran past it. I even animated the grass and the bushes. Does it look good? Sort of. Was it probably a massive waste of time? Yes. I've recounted how much I love learning coding. I also love this kind of stuff because it really tests your like, am I stupid? There was some parts of this tutorial though that I'm like, there's gotta be an easier way to this though. Like the hurt and hit boxes.
Type in emit.
How is getting hit this complicated? There's so much indentation happening off of what I would consider like a pretty easy concept, right? Just damage the thing with the hurt box when a hit box comes into the hurt box. Like that's all that we're coding, right? Why am I 5 indentations in? Why is this so complicated? And the last thing I started doing was adding sounds, and I can't tell you how satisfying getting sounds into your game can be. Like my guy running, being able to hear his footsteps hitting the grass is just, it's adding the next perspective into your world. It's literally turning on your ears. It's so satisfying. And just with another day of developing, here's where I got to. I got the hurt animations and death animations working. The zombies disappear after a certain amount. I have waves where a ton of enemies keep coming. The throwing axe spins and it disappears after a certain distance. And speaking of sounds, my guy also gets hurt, does the hurt animation, and plays a hurt sound, which sounds like this. Can you guess who the voice actor is for that guy? Ooh, ah, ee, ah. It's me. I also think for some reason my friggin' last day of footage didn't record, so I did all this stuff, but I'm just saying it now. But yeah, here's the game so far. And I'm saying so far because, and I hate to dupe you guys like this, but this is the part 1 of this game. I'm not finished making this game. The reason why I'm making it a part 1 is just because I simply ran out of time. I thought it would take a lot faster, but there was just so much to learn and so much I have learned so far. And I think it's just the better choice to make this as a video of its own, so that when I deliver on the second part of this video, I'll be able to actually give you guys a playable version of this game that also is fun. Because as far as making games so far, I don't think I've made a fun game. I think I've made a playable thing. There's just so much more I want to add that actually feels attainable with just another few weeks of developing this game. Like adding blood and death, a health bar to me and my enemy, experience points, being able to level up, having a user interface, having a few more weapons in the game, having a couple more enemy types. And honestly, I think there's even room for a few more things in there. Like maybe a couple maps, but I don't know. I don't want to get over my head because that's very easy to do in game development. But I hope you enjoyed my game so far. Thanks for sticking around if you watched the whole video. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the second part of this video in just a few weeks, where you can actually hopefully play this game that I'm making right now. I'll say the thing I'm most excited about with this game dev journey is that I'm really loving it so far. Like really loving it. I'm like making games more than I'm playing games lately. And I want to say a thank you to all the other game developers on YouTube. You guys are constantly inspiring me, and I'm sure countless others, to be able to do this thing that seems pretty impossible. But with the help of people on YouTube, a moron like me can even figure it out. I want to thank War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to play for free on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox now using my link in the pinned comment or video description. And don't forget, new and returning players that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across all platforms, including multiple premium vehicles and other goodies. And it's only available for a limited time, so don't miss out. But yeah, I hope you guys look forward to part 2 of this video. Let me know what you guys think about the game so far. Let me know if you guys have started making your own games and what they are. Again, feel free to email me. But if you could do me a favor, and if you want to email me in the subject line the thing that you do first, like 3D modeler, and then introduce yourself, and then keep it to like 1 or 2 paragraphs with a link to your work. That would really help me out in the future. And if you didn't do that the first time, send me an email again. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one, and we'll hopefully be playing a game. All right, see ya.